Good morning, YouTubers, fellow reloaders, and as you can tell from these two boxes, this is probably not going to be a reloading video. And this is actually the culmination of what I would call my mini PC journey, and it started tax season this year as a result of some issues with TurboTax. So let me rewind the clock a little bit. My desktop that I loved and still have, because I collect old PCs. I love IBM PS2s. I started with a Model 30 in 1987. That was a college loan to get that computer, and it was a expensive computer. So I love collecting old IBMs, old HPs, Proliants, Prolinias, you name it. And I'm a Mac fan too. So in fact, I was recently trying to pick up a Mac Classic, but the guy was being a little too shady about it. So anyway, back to my desktop. So I picked up my desktop in 2007. I specifically remember this particular desktop in 2007 because it was on a daily deals and it had expandable storage and I could do RAID. And I was like, okay, I'm going to have this. And I bought it. And my son would always make fun of me because he was into performance PCs and I was into not performance PCs. Just I need a desktop with access to do my Word, Excel, internet access, mail, banking, all that generic general stuff. So anyway, in 2015, he for Christmas got me an SSD drive, and in 2015 that was becoming all the new rage. And we decided at that point, hey, let's build a father-son project, a new PC. So we did that over the course of a year because I would buy a component and then we would build. So we'd buy the frame. We got an open air box frame. It's called a Win frame. It was pretty cool, modular and liquid cooled. CPU, Mongo video card, but again, it was costly, so it was every couple weeks, a month, we'd buy a new component and we build it. So it took about a year to build, and I've had that PC ever since like 2016-ish. So fast forward to this year, tax season, TurboTax. I go to install TurboTax, and it installs fine, but it won't upgrade the product. So I call TurboTax and spent a week trying to troubleshoot off and on, hours on the phone with different people. They were downloading different product. Finally, they said, I have a hardware problem. I'm like, hey guys, I've been using TurboTax every year since 2015. So that's going on 6 years worth of TurboTax, never had a problem. And they insisted it was hardware related. So I'm like, okay, whatever. So I ended up, scrambling because I didn't have an extra PC. So I went over to Best Buy and I was just going to buy a cheapie PC. Well, there's no such thing as a cheapie PC anymore. And I would say use air quotes around cheapie PC because that depends. And this is where the mini PC comes into play. So quite a number of years ago, we had an incident in our neighborhood, actually a couple neighborhoods. So we decided to put up cameras. And originally I was having my camera dumped to my Gmail, and Google cut me off saying I was spamming the account. I'm like, well, it's my account. So I ended up having to get a PC, and I decided that I would do a mini PC, and I built a mail server, and I would have all my mail, my images dumped to that mail server. So that was my entry into, because I just wanted something small and out of the way. So that was my entry in 2016-ish, 2015, to the mini PC. And this sat on a shelf. In fact, I never even took the plastic off. I'm a fan of that. This sat on the shelf for years, doing a good job. It ran Windows Vista, I think. 2 gigs of memory, 320 gig hard drive. This was spinning disk, nothing fancy. And then I started to have problems with it, so the hardware started to go. And I thought, okay, I'm keeping this for memory's sake because, again, cool old stuff. And when I started looking around, in 2018 for a replacement for this Z-Box, and it's kind of funny what the current replacement is. So remember that name, Z-Box. Well, if you can see it, Z-Box by Zotac. And I think they're still around. So anyway, I decided, okay, what's the next thing in mini computing? And I decided to go with a name brandish at this point, and I picked up the Intel NUC, New Something Computing. And this is what, up until today-ish, and I don't know if I'm going to replace this yet. So this is only about 3 years old. And the specs on this were, for this particular model, it was wireless, 3 ports, SD card slot. I can't remember the processor. Let's see if it's on here. If it is, I have no clue. You know, it's a Celeron, nothing super high end, but I picked it up, one, because, you know, the price was right, and two, the size, and there's nothing in here because this is what I run today, but it's about half the size of this box. So it's the footprint of this. This is the footprint, this plate, VESA plate, and it's about, you know, half the height of this box. So a really cool little unit, and it's been very reliable, and I don't remember what I run on it. I want to say I run Windows 10, upgraded to Windows 10. So this PC has, and I think I have a 256 gig SSD in there. So this PC has been okay for me. And the only reason I'm making this video, again, size 5.5, so we'll say 5 by, this is about half this, 5 by 2.5, so 5 by 5 by 2.5-ish. I don't even know if it gives the dimensions of the unit. Don't know, but it's tiny and pretty cool. And I was reasonably satisfied with this, and this is starting to get long in the tooth. And I was surfing YouTube, and I came across a video on another mini PC, and I thought, okay, so for my mail PC and my cameras and my images, this is doing fine. For my solution with my tax issues on having an extra PC, aside from my otherwise fine and functioning working desktop, when it comes time for TurboTax, or if I had to splash a particular OS, and yeah, people say, oh, just do a virtual box or something like that, so you can do a VM and load up what you want and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, yeah, I could do that. So, but I like to tinker, as you know, on this channel. So I'm not replacing this per se, but I would say that the next segment in this video that I will shoot is the evolution of my journey along the mini PC path, because this new mini PC I am going to use as what I would call a workbench tool, and workbench in the sense of computer related. So you know, for example, next year when I do taxes, I would probably load up TurboTax on that particular box. So that would be a box that you know, where this is, I always need this to be running for my mail server and my security cameras. I don't need the new mini PC to be doing that. So that allows me to have a little more fun with the mini PC as opposed to the role this one plays. Now this one was like, I want to say like $400-ish 3 years ago when it was new. So it wasn't cheap, but it wasn't, you know, break the bank kind of thing. You know, $400 was like a, you know, video card for the desktop. So when I found this new mini PC, I was just blown away by how far technology had come and this was the closest thing I could compare it to. So I went out and I looked at the new prices, or rather the current prices for the new Intel NUCs, and you could, $500 to over $1,000 depending on how you spec it out. So I was finding that in the mini PC space, the footprint that I'm looking at in terms of memory and storage, everything now is SSD or M.2 or eVMe, if I'm remembering the right letters. It's in the 6 to 8 gig of memory and 256-ish on the flash drives with expansion capabilities, so an extra M.2 slot or SD card slot or what have you. But the really amazing thing, and what comes to mind is this, now that I've knocked everything over, this little power cube, what I'm holding in my hand. And when I show you the PC, it's going to basically look like this. And I thought that was kind of amazing. So let me go ahead and bring out that version of the PC. And we'll pick this up where we left off now that it's well over 100 degrees. And I dug up another PC for comparison. This is an older, like 2 years old, Raspberry Pi that we built out, and we were using Ubuntu, other couple flavors of Linux, and again the cost comparison, the size comparison. You could say that the Raspberry Pi and its box is maybe equivalent in footprint to that particular item. But now that I have to step around the camera, we will do what I think will be an unbagging and an unboxing. So let's take care of this bag from our rainforest friends. And, ooh, I'm a Chewy VIP. Okie dokie. So this is the Lark Box Pro Mini PC, preloaded with Windows 10 Home, with an Intel Celeron J4125, maxing out at 2.7 gigahertz. I think it runs at 2 with a spike up to 7. It's got, let's see what else. I know that it came with 6 gigs of memory and 256 gigs of storage, flash storage. That's an interesting little touch there. So now we will this is like super cellophane. Okay, so thanks for choosing Chewy products. Our pleasure to serve you. Hope you will be pleased with the product. If you have any questions, please contact us by mail. Our customer service team, happy to help you. Don't call us. Email us, because we don't want to talk to you. We might have to speak English if we talk to you. All right, so now looks like this is just a little shaky box. What do we have here? I'm going to guess that is hardware for the VESA mount, which is somewhere in here. There's the power adapter, the USB-C that only does power, kind of Apple-esque. Maybe the VESA mount is in the bottom. Maybe it's nowhere. Ah, it was in the bottom. Yeah, this is very Apple-esque. And that is the hardware, which I'm not going to mount at present. Looks like this is our user manual, which is more like a user map. Oh yeah, I'm so not going to read that. Yep. That's not happening. All right, let's get to the main event here. Dun 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 dun. Okay, so remember, there's my power brick, my USB charger / power brick on my bench. Well, this has been in the truck for a while. It is quite warm. Okay, so that is tiny. Again, for comparison's sake, there is the... So we have our power button LED, vents, flash SD card rather, earphone jack 3.5. This is for the USB-C charging only, no data transfer. HDMI and 2 USB 3 slots. So you've got storage upgradability, and then if you pop the bottom off this, based on what I've seen online, there is an adapter space for an M.2 SATA drive, SSD flash. So you know, a half a terabyte of flash for $75, another $25 for a 128 SD card. And then you've got, I think it was 128 gigs. It's either 128 or 256. I want to say 256. Yeah, 256 and 6 gigs of memory. And I will double check the stats, but I believe that's what it was. Worst case, it's 128 megs, but I believe it was 256. So that is technically. I would say realistically it's actually smaller than this power adapter. A little bit larger on the footprint all around, but you know, a good ½ an inch shorter. So from a computer point of view, that is an x86 based computer that will run Windows 10. Not that that's a wonderful thing, but that's a pretty cool little computer, you know, to have in the palm of your hand. And again, that will help with my stuck in a pinch trying to install TurboTax. And some people say, well, why don't you use your Pi? And yeah, but last time I checked, TurboTax doesn't run on Windows. And I believe there's hackathons or ways to get Windows on a Pi. But this comes preloaded, so you've got your Windows license and everything else. And this came, full cost was $157 and change, so it was under $158 for the stats that it has. And I thought that was pretty darn cool. I like the fact that I've seen some of them online where they had the Celeron sticker here. And I think it's a little more elegant to put it there, so to keep the lines and everything else kind of cool. But, you know, to have, if you saw my earlier part of the video, or if you paid attention or even looked, the first mini PC that I had was, you know, really tiny, and it was a mini PC. And then the Nook was, you know, took it to the next level, and then this takes it even to another level. And my biggest concern with this, as has been documented online, is heat. There is a fan in here, but when you look at what all is in this box and the heat that it could potentially generate, again, it's not a gaming system, but it's also not water cooled. And I think if you look at some of the disassembly videos, you'll see that there is a, I wouldn't even call it a heat sink, heat pad, like essentially foam pad, because there's 2 layers of silicone boards in here, an I/O board and then a processing board, and the CPU I think is on the bottom one, and then you've got their fan up here. So pretty darn cool, but I think it will address my needs of just having that backup emergency PC. And I've always been a big fan of tower PCs. You know, my desktop is a tower configuration. The HP Pavilion was a tower configuration. I've got old ProLiant 1600, that's tower. The PS2s are towers. The Model 60s, the Model 80, the Model 95. It's interesting to compare this to like an HPE ProLiant Microserver Gen8, which is giant and very expandable, whereas this is not as expandable. But again, the whole cube concept, kind of like Steve Jobs with Next. You know, here's the Next Cube, and this is more powerful than the 6800 based Next Cube. So I just think it's amazing what happens with technology. And you know, here's your shrinkflation. Your size is shrinking. Price, for what you're getting. This is exponentially more powerful than the PS2 Model 30 I bought in college, my first exposure to PCs. And the processing power of this and capabilities of this in my hand compared to that giant, very, very heavy piece of machinery is completely, outdated by, technology moves in huge strides. So I'm pretty blown away by this. This is beyond cool. I don't think I'll do a follow-up video for you all in terms of functionality. There's plenty of videos out on the net, but it's pretty cool in terms of the size and taking that mini PC form factor to the next level. And when I saw the Cube and I jumped online to see, well, I wonder how much that is, and I was just blown away by, $150. That's just ridiculous, and it fits the bill of what I was looking for when my desktop freaked out a number of weeks back, and I didn't have a backup PC, and I'm scrambling, and all the old laptops I had ran really old versions of software. So to have a modernish go-to secondary machine, when I zipped over to Best Buy and checked prices for either cheap desktops or laptops, that was a shock. And this was a pleasant surprise because it gives me everything I'm looking for at a price point and a form factor that is what I would call pretty excellent. So really cool value, in my opinion. Now let's turn around and see if it works. I won't say more to come because I'm probably done with this series, but very nice. Very nicely done piece of hardware.